starting tomorrow. Is it always like this, or is this an exception?
Yeah.
Whole life's been dominated by Ozzy. Explain your relationship with him.
His reputation was so fierce, everybody was terrified of him.
Can you imagine loving someone for over 50 years, standing by their side through every single storm, and then having to say goodbye forever? This is the heartbreaking reality that Sharon Osbourne is facing right now. And it's a story that will touch your heart in ways you never expected. Just 5 days ago, on July 22nd, 2025, the world lost a true legend. Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness himself, passed away at the age of 76, leaving behind not just millions of fans worldwide, but a devastated family who loved him more than words could ever express. But this isn't just a story about losing a rock star. This is a story about love, dedication, and what it means to fight alongside someone when the odds seem impossible to beat. Sharon Osbourne has been many things throughout her life. She's been a manager, a television personality, a mother, and a fighter. But above all else, she's been Ozzy's wife, his partner, and his biggest supporter through battles that would have broken most people. Today, we're going to take you through the incredible journey of Sharon and Ozzy's love story, the devastating health challenges they faced together, and how Sharon is now learning to say goodbye to the man who was her whole world. Their love story began back in 1970 when Sharon was just 18 years old. She wasn't Sharon Osbourne yet. She was Sharon Arden, the daughter of Don Arden, who happened to be managing a little band called Black Sabbath. Can you imagine being 18 and meeting someone who would change your entire life? That's exactly what happened when Sharon first laid eyes on Ozzy. But this wasn't some fairy tale romance that happened overnight. Ozzy was married to someone else at the time, and Sharon had to watch from the sidelines as the man she was falling for struggled with his own demons. For years, she watched him battle addiction, watched him make peace, and watched him try to find his way in a world that seemed determined to destroy him. But Sharon saw something in Ozzy that maybe even he couldn't see in himself. In 1982, after Ozzy's divorce, Sharon and Ozzy finally got married. By this time, Sharon wasn't just his girlfriend. She had become his manager, taking over from her own father to guide Ozzy's career. Think about that for a moment. She was willing to risk her relationship with her own family to help the man she loved succeed. That's not just love. That's the kind of devotion that most people only dream about. Together, they built an empire. Sharon turned Ozzy from a struggling musician into one of the biggest rock stars in the world. She organized his tours, negotiated his contracts, and basically became the business brain behind the Ozzy Osbourne brand. But more importantly, she became his anchor in a world that was constantly trying to pull him under. The couple had 3 children together, Amy, Kelly, and Jack. Sharon didn't just manage Ozzy's career. She managed their entire family, often while Ozzy was struggling with his addictions. There were times when she had to be both mother and father to their children, because Ozzy was too lost in his own battles to be present. But she never gave up on him, not even when everyone else told her she should. In the early 2000s, their family became famous in a completely different way when they starred in the reality TV show, The Osbournes. For the first time, the world got to see what life was really like inside the Osbourne household. We saw Sharon as the strong, no-nonsense matriarch who kept everyone in line. We saw Ozzy as the lovable but confused dad who couldn't figure out how to work the remote control. But what we also saw was a family that, despite all their chaos and dysfunction, truly loved each other. But behind the cameras and the laughter, Sharon was fighting battles that most people never knew about. In 2002, she was diagnosed with colon cancer, and suddenly the roles were reversed. Ozzy, who had been struggling with his own demons for years, had to step up and be strong for the woman who had always been strong for him. The cancer diagnosis was terrifying, but Sharon fought it with the same fierce determination she brought to everything else in her life. When Sharon was going through her cancer treatment, Ozzy was reportedly inconsolable. This man who had faced down demons on stage, who had survived decades of drug and alcohol abuse, was completely broken at the thought of losing his wife. He became, according to family reports, almost hysterical and needed to be sedated when Sharon first got her diagnosis. That's when you know this wasn't just a celebrity marriage for show. This was real, deep, soul-crushing love. Sharon beat cancer, but the fight took its toll on both of them. She had to undergo chemotherapy, radiation, and eventually chose to have a preventive double mastectomy in 2012 to reduce her risk of breast cancer. Through it all, Ozzy was by her side, probably for the first time in their relationship being two. He won doing the supporting instead of being supported. But life had more challenges in store for the Osbourne family. In 2003, Ozzy was diagnosed with a form of Parkinson's disease, though this diagnosis wasn't made public until much later. At first, it seemed manageable. Ozzy himself said in interviews that it was a mild form and that he wasn't experiencing the shaking that most people associate with Parkinson's. But anyone who knows anything about this disease knows that it's progressive. It gets worse over time. For years, Sharon watched as the man she loved slowly began to change. Parkinson's disease doesn't just affect your movement. It affects everything. Your speech can become slurred, your movements become slower and more difficult, and eventually, simple tasks that you've done your whole life become nearly impossible. But Sharon adapted to every single change, learning how to help Ozzy with things that he could no longer do for himself. In 2019, everything got much worse. Ozzy had a serious fall at their home, and this accident seemed to accelerate all of his health problems. The fall injured his neck and back, requiring multiple surgeries and months of recovery. But more than that, it seemed to mark the beginning of a much more serious decline in his overall health. Sharon had to watch as the man who had once commanded stadiums full of screaming fans struggled to walk across their living room. In 2024, Ozzy revealed on The Osbournes podcast that he was experiencing great difficulty walking, saying his feet felt like he had bricks tied to them and diving boots on when walking. Can you imagine how heartbreaking it must have been for Sharon to hear the man she loved describe something as simple as walking in such painful terms? But Sharon never complained, not publicly anyway. She became Ozzy's full-time caregiver, managing not just his career, but every aspect of his daily life. She helped him get dressed, helped him eat, helped him with things that most married couples never have to think about. And she did it all while maintaining her own television career, her own public appearances, and her own responsibilities. The couple had to make the difficult decision to move back to the United Kingdom from their long-time home in California. The move wasn't just about being closer to family. It was about finding the best possible medical care for Ozzy's condition. Sharon had to uproot their entire life, sell their dream home, and start over in a place that would be better for Ozzy's health needs. In recent interviews, Sharon was remarkably open about what their life had become. She talked about how Ozzy could no longer tour, how he struggled with basic mobility, and how the disease was slowly taking away the man she had known and loved for over 50 years. But she also talked about how much she still loved him, how she would rather be struggling with him than living without him. Sharon revealed in February that Ozzy was unable to walk because of Parkinson's disease, but noted that the diagnosis doesn't affect his voice. Even in the midst of all this heartbreak, Sharon was still trying to find the positive, still trying to focus on what Ozzy could still do, rather than what he had lost. The family tried to maintain some sense of normalcy, but it became increasingly difficult. Kelly and Jack Osbourne and their children had to watch their father deteriorate while their mother carried the weight of caring for him almost entirely on her own. It's a burden that no family should have to bear, but they bore it together, with Sharon leading the way. In May 2025, just 2 months before his death, Ozzy told The Guardian that he was sober and had become kind of like a homebody, saying, "I never go out. I never hang out in bars. I don't drink." This was perhaps the most heartbreaking revelation of all. The man who had been known for his wild lifestyle, his crazy antics, and his larger-than-life personality had been reduced to someone who rarely left his house. But Sharon stood by him through every step of this heartbreaking decline. She could have walked away. Many people would have understood if she had decided that she couldn't handle watching the man she loved disappear bit by bit. But that's not who Sharon Osbourne is. She's a fighter, and she was going to fight for Ozzy until the very end. Just weeks before Ozzy's death, he made one final public appearance. His death came just weeks after his final live performance, where he reunited with his Black Sabbath bandmates. Sharon was there with him, supporting him, making sure he could have one last moment doing what he loved most, performing for his fans. On July 22nd, 2025, Ozzy Osbourne died at the age of 76, just weeks after his farewell show. According to his family's statement, he was with his family and surrounded by love. Sharon was by his side, just as she had been for over 50 years of marriage. In a statement to TMZ, the Osbourne family said, "Ozzy died Tuesday surrounded by love, though the cause of death remains unclear." What is clear is that Sharon lost not just her husband, but her best friend, her business partner, and the love of her life, all in one devastating moment. The outpouring of love and support for Sharon has been incredible. Fans from around the world have shared their memories of Ozzy and their admiration for Sharon's devotion to him. Many have called her a hero, saying that her dedication to Ozzy through his illness showed what true love really looks like. But now comes the hardest part of all, learning to live without him. Sharon is 72 years old, and she's spent more than half her life dedicated to taking care of Ozzy Osbourne. She spent decades managing his career, fighting his battles, and being his biggest supporter through everything life threw at them. Now she has to figure out who she is without him. The grief that Sharon must be feeling right now is unimaginable. This isn't just losing a spouse. This is losing someone who was such a huge part of her identity that it's hard to know where Ozzy ended and Sharon began. She wasn't just Mrs. Ozzy Osbourne. She was his manager, his caregiver, his protector, and his biggest fan, all rolled into one. In the days since Ozzy's death, Sharon has been remarkably private, which is understandable given the magnitude of her loss. Sharon Osbourne has spoken out about her husband Ozzy Osbourne's death in a comment posted to Instagram. The fact that she's finding the strength to communicate with fans at all during this incredibly difficult time shows just how strong she really is. But Sharon's story isn't over, even though this chapter has ended in the most heartbreaking way possible. She's a survivor. She survived cancer. She survived decades of Ozzy's addiction struggles. She survived watching the man she loved slowly deteriorate from Parkinson's disease. She'll survive this too, but it's going to be the hardest thing she's ever had to do. What makes Sharon's story so inspiring isn't just that she loved Ozzy through everything, it's that she never gave up hope. Even when the doctors told them there was no cure for Parkinson's, even when Ozzy could barely walk, even when everyone could see that he was declining rapidly, Sharon never stopped believing that they could have more time together. She never stopped fighting for him. The love story of Sharon and Ozzy Osbourne isn't a fairy tale. It's something much more real and much more powerful than that. It's a story about what happens when two people decide that they're going to face whatever life throws at them together, no matter how difficult it gets. It's a story about sacrifice, about putting someone else's needs before your own, and about finding strength you didn't even know you had. Sharon spent years watching the man she loved slip away from her bit by bit. She watched Parkinson's disease steal his mobility, his independence, and eventually his life. But she also got to spend over 50 years married to someone who, despite all his flaws and struggles, loved her just as much as she loved him. Their relationship wasn't perfect. No relationship ever is. Ozzy struggled with addiction for decades, and there were times when Sharon probably wondered if she was fighting a losing battle. But she never stopped fighting, and in the end, she got to be there with him as he took his final breath, surrounded by the family they had built together. The impact that Sharon and Ozzy had on each other's lives is immeasurable. Without Sharon, Ozzy might never have become the global superstar he became. She took a talented but troubled musician and helped him build a legacy that will last forever. But without Ozzy, Sharon might never have discovered just how strong and capable she really was. He gave her a purpose that went far beyond just being a wife. He made her into a businesswoman, a manager, and a fighter. Now, as Sharon faces life without Ozzy, she's carrying forward not just his memory, but the lessons that their relationship taught both of them. She learned that love isn't just about the good times. It's about standing by someone when they need you most, even when it's incredibly difficult to do so. The Osbourne children, Kelly, Jack, and Amy, are also dealing with the loss of their father, but they're also witnessing their mother's incredible strength during one of the most difficult times in her life. Sharon is showing them what it means to grieve with grace, to honor someone's memory while still finding a way to move forward. In the coming months and years, Sharon will have to navigate a world without Ozzy by her side. She'll have to make decisions without her partner of over 50 years. She'll have to face challenges without her biggest supporter, and she'll have to find new meaning and purpose in her life. It won't be easy, but if anyone has the strength to do it, it's Sharon Osbourne. The entertainment industry has lost one of its biggest personalities in Ozzy Osbourne, but it's important to remember that Sharon has lost so much more than that. She's lost her husband, her best friend, and the person who had been the center of her world for more than half a century. The grief she's experiencing right now is profound and personal, and it's going to take time for her to heal. But Sharon's story is also a testament to the power of love and dedication. She showed the world what it means to love someone unconditionally, to stand by them through their darkest moments, and to never give up hope even when the situation seems hopeless. Her devotion to Ozzy during his health battle was nothing short of heroic. As we remember Ozzy Osbourne and celebrate his incredible legacy in music, we should also take a moment to appreciate Sharon Osbourne and everything she sacrificed to be by his side. She could have had an easier life, she could have chosen a different path, but she chose love instead. She chose to fight for their relationship, to fight for his health, and to fight for their family, even when it seemed like the odds were stacked against them. The story of Sharon and Ozzy Osbourne is ultimately a love story. Not the kind you see in movies, but the real, messy, complicated kind of love that exists in the real world. It's a love that survived addiction, illness, career pressures, family drama, and ultimately, the heartbreak of having to say goodbye. It's the kind of love that most people can only dream of having, and Sharon was lucky enough to experience it for over 50 years. Right now, Sharon is learning how to say goodbye to the love of her life, and our hearts go out to her during this incredibly difficult time. She's not just grieving the loss of her husband, she's grieving the end of a partnership that defined both of their lives for decades. But she's also carrying forward an incredible legacy of love, dedication, and strength that will inspire people for generations to come. If this story has touched your heart the way it's touched ours, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear about the power of true love and dedication. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories about the people and relationships that remind us what really matters in life. Sharon Osbourne may be saying goodbye to Ozzy, but their love story will live on forever in the hearts of everyone who believes in the power of standing by someone through thick and thin.